Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope you are all safe and well. Today I wanted to give you guys an update on what is happening with Disney. So on May 15th, the Florida governor, Ron DeSantis, said Disney and Universal could submit their reopening plan. So they can't just reopen whenever they want. They have to submit plans first. So that was on May 15th, and Universal's City Walk began to partially reopen on May 14th. So that's not the actual parks, but just the City Walk portion. And they determined after their plans were approved that the Universal Orlando parks will reopen on June 5th. Now, in terms of Disney Springs, portions of Disney Springs began to reopen on Wednesday, May 20th, and that was the first phase of reopening, and that was just the subcontracted shops, so they were not Disney-owned locations. Now, the next phase of Disney Springs reopening is expected on this coming Wednesday, May 27th, and some Disney locations are going to open, and that will include World of Disney, Deluxe Burger, and the Disney Marketplace. Marketplace Co-op. It's like a really big store that has like little locations within it. So those three locations are Disney owned, and they are expected to open on Wednesday, May 27th, as in the second phase. Now, in terms of safety and reopening, Disney has been following and taking similar measures as to what has been done in Shanghai Disney. Disney has temperature checks at all of their entrances, and your temperature needs to be 100.4 degrees Fahrenheit or less. If it is not less than 100.4, you're moved to an alternative location where you are re-screened and you're given assistance. And if your temperature comes in, then you're good to go. If it does not, you and your entire party are not allowed to enter. Something else to mention is everybody must wear masks, and you must bring your own. They are not going to supply you with masks. You must bring your own, everybody ages 3 and up. So in addition to all of the guests wearing masks, all of the workers are wearing masks, whether they are Disney employees or if they are, again, third-party subcontracted employees. Everybody's going to be wearing a mask. Disney has also increased the amount of cleaning and sanitization that is taking place. Disney has provided their staff with additional training on how to properly clean certain areas and what those high traffic areas are, and the frequency with which to clean them. They are using the CDC guidelines as far as that goes. Now, like I said, everybody has to have their temperature checked when you go through an entrance. To help facilitate that, Disney has reduced the number of entrances to Disney Springs. So when they opened, I'm not sure if this is still the case, I would assume so, but when they first opened, they had a reduced number of entrances and parking garages. So there weren't as many, and that was just to help to funnel people into the temperature checks and have the appropriate number of Disney cast members there at screening. Now, you may have seen some pictures from Shanghai Disney opening. They are requiring social distancing, and the way they're doing that is there is essentially a big sticker on the ground that is 6 feet in length, and it says, "Do not stand here." And some people were saying it seems kind of silly to have something that says "Do not stand here," because it's going to be first nature to want to stand there. People are speculating it is just for the sake of not having to replace it and having it last longer, not as many people standing on it, I guess. Additionally, they have also placed plexiglass dividers between the cast members at the cash registers and the guests. Now, quite possibly the least magical of all of these things is are the signs they have placed at the entrances. And it's what what type of sign is this? I want to call it like a table tent, but it's not on a table. Is there a name for this type of sign?
It's like a sandwich board without the person. An
A-frame?
A-frame sign.
Okay, it doesn't really matter. But what the sign reads is COVID-19 warning. We have taken enhanced health and safety measures for you, our other guests and cast members. You must follow all posted instructions while visiting Walt Disney World. An inherent risk of exposure to COVID-19 exists in any public place where people are present. COVID-19 is an extremely contagious disease that can lead to severe illness and death. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, senior citizens and guests with underlying medical conditions are especially vulnerable. By visiting Walt Disney World, you voluntarily assume all risks related to exposure to COVID-19. Help keep each other healthy and safe. So if you get sick and die, you can't sue them. Your remaining family members can't sue them. You are warned of the risks. Now, what does this mean for the timeline moving forward? So, like I said, on May 15th, the governor, Ron DeSantis, Florida governor, said Disney and Universal could submit their plans. On May 21st, Universal's CEO, John Sprouts, submitted the Universal plan. On that same day, Orange County Mayor Jerry Demings, so Orange County Mayor, not a Disney employee, but the Orange County mayor said Disney will submit their reopening plan and date next week, which is this week. Today is Monday, May 25th, Memorial Day. So this week goes from today through Friday, May 29th in terms of the business week. So the assumption is the mayor spoke with somebody at Disney who said they would be submitting their plans this week. So again, that didn't come from Disney. The news articles I was reading contacted Disney and they did not receive a comment. So take that with a grain of salt. So once Disney submits their plan, what has to happen? The plan first has to be shared with the Orange County Economic Recovery Task Force. They have to approve the plan, and then the plan has to go to Mayor Demings and Governor DeSantis for approval. And then if all of those approve, then they can go ahead and move forward. So Disney is kind of looking to Shanghai Disney first to see how their reopening has been going and making adjustments as necessary for the state of Florida. Then they're also using Disney Springs, I imagine, as a sort of guinea pig, with the idea being, since the parks are still closed, as well as the Disney World hotels, the people that are going to Disney Springs right now are locals. And that's pretty common. A lot of locals go to Disney Springs anyway because you do not need, there's no park entrance fee, and parking is free, and it's beautiful. So if you live in the area, I can totally understand why you'd want to go to Disney Springs. And then now with Universal open, or opening, they're opening on June 1st. So Disney will be submitting their plans, but I'm wondering if they are going to look at Universal's plans, if they're going to make any adjustments based on how that goes. So we will see how what happens there. Now, I have talked in my previous videos a little bit about wearing masks at Disney and if we would do it or not. And things are constantly changing. So I can only speak for what is the current situation. And I've mentioned this before, in case, I'll mention it one more time in case you guys are new here. But in addition to being a travel agent that specializes in Disney travel, I have another job as a medical laboratory scientist. So I have a lot of science classes, medical classes in my background. So I understand a good deal more about what is happening than probably the average person. I'm not claiming I'm Dr. Fauci, but I do know quite a bit about what is happening, and I understand the medical implications of it. That being said, I understand the different types of masks as well. I have to wear masks at work every day for months now. Every single day when I go into work, I have to have my temperature checked. I have to wear a mask. They hand me a paper bag so that when you're not wearing your mask, which is to be worn all times except for when you're at lunch, the mask has to be in the paper bag so you don't set your mask directly on a table. I've also worked at the COVID clinic several times, so I see everything that's happening there. We've also been very, very diligent about social distancing. We don't both go. The only place we've been going is to the grocery store, and my husband and I, we go by ourselves. We're not both going. We're wearing a mask every single time. We have one N95 mask, which I wanted to point out here is the only type of mask that is going to prevent the wearer from getting sick. This is the N95 mask. And because the 95 stands for that it filters out 95% of the particles. There's also like an N99, but you never hear about that. It must be pretty rare. And those are extremely difficult to breathe in because they're like super tight and they go around your head. Doctors are wearing the N95 masks, and nurses, any medical staff, when they're going into the room of a suspected COVID patient, when they're testing people for COVID. Now, the surgical masks and the reusable face masks that people are making and buying on places like Etsy. I know a lot of people are commenting several things that I wanted to address, such as, I'm not going to be able to breathe. Well, yes, it's going to be hot in Florida. Having worn it all day at work and running up and down the steps at work, and I can understand the fear. It does get hot, and it can get difficult to breathe. There's not a lot you can do about that. That's just the way it is. There are going to be some people who are, maybe if you have a breathing issue, that is going to be a bigger problem. But for most people, I think it's more mental. I find myself, I'm like, I really can't breathe. I can't breathe. Yes, you can breathe. It's fine. There are people, this girl that I follow on Instagram, she lives in Dubai, and she went running in Dubai outside. It was at night, but it's Dubai. It's really hot. And she had to wear a mask. She managed to do it running. So it is possible. Now, the Disney cast members are being pretty strict. There was one very angry person who posted online that he took his mask off for a minute, and the cast member told me he had to put it back on. Well, they're following the rules. You can't get mad at the cast members for it. There are people who are saying it should be your own risk. If you wear one, if you want, you shouldn't have to wear it. The idea is all of these surgical masks and reusable face masks, not the N95, but these reusable ones, they are protecting. So if I am wearing a face mask and my husband is not, well, say he's a stranger because we live in the same household, and he's not, I am protecting him, because when you are talking and breathing and you're wearing a face mask, it is going to stop more of the virus from getting out. And the reason behind that is there is a little bit of moisture that in condensation that's created inside the mask when you talk, and the virus particles are going to stick to that. That's why if I'm healthy and he is carrying the virus, whether he knows it or not, and he's not wearing a face mask, that's why in the beginning the CDC was like, these masks aren't going to help you because the virus is going to go through and stick to those virus particles. So it's actually in that case probably doing you more harm than good. Now, if he's wearing a mask and I'm wearing a mask, that is at this time thought to be the best we can do. That's the best case scenario. Now, this is constantly changing and evolving, but that is why you're not wearing a mask to protect yourself. You're wearing a mask to protect others. So that's why you can't just say, well, if you're worried, then just you should wear a mask for yourself. It's not going to work that way. The other thing I wanted to address is somebody said, well, I already had COVID. Why do I have to wear a mask? You are not impervious to the virus, because if you have the COVID antibodies, it doesn't mean that they just like get near you and bounce off and fling the other way. You can still have the virus on you and be transferring it for a period of time. So you do not have an invisible shield on you to the COVID virus just because you have had it at one point. You can still carry it and transfer it. Additionally, do you have to show proof? And then do you always have to have proof on you? And every time a cast member sees you not wearing a mask, are they going to have to say, let me see your antibody credentials? Because what's to say once you've gone through that screening, I can take my mask off just because I don't believe in wearing them and I want to be able to breathe, And people are going to assume that I have the antibodies when in reality I don't. So there's a lot of pieces to that. Now, my husband and I are still planning on going in the beginning of August. Provided Disney is open, we will take the necessary precautions. Looking ahead, the precautions that they are taking, I feel confident at this point in going because I have been working at the COVID clinic, and I should note that I am requesting to not work at that location for 2 weeks prior to my trip so that I do not increase my risk of exposure for people on a plane and whatnot. Planes are spreading people out the best that they can. They're requiring temperature checks and everybody to wear masks. Disney's doing temperature checks and requiring everybody to wear masks. They're doing all, like I said, all this increased social distancing and sanitization. That's far more requirements and safety is put into that process than if you go to the grocery store, where right now our store that's the closest to us that we visit, not everybody's wearing a mask. There's no temperature checks. So honestly, it's probably safer, and so much of it is outdoors, and there's a lower risk of transferring infection when you're outside than when you're inside. So may we change our park plans? Probably. There might be things we don't get to do, but I do still want to go. I have a hair that's somewhere on here. I can feel it. Every time I film, I feel it. I think there is, the last thing I will wrap this up, but the last thing I mentioned is I see it. Can you see it? Oh my God. It's probably a spider web. I'm fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's no big deal. The last thing I wanted to mention before I wrap this up is I think there is a big there's a pretty thick line here, and you have to do what's best for yourself. There is something to, I can't let this ruin and run my life forever, because we don't know when there's going to be an end. We don't know when the next pandemic is going to happen. Common sense and science and history will tell us that there's not going to be another pandemic right around the corner, but I think this has shown us that you can't predict when it's going to come. So while we can't live our lives in fear, I think you also have to be smart. Now, if my Starbucks was open, I'm not going to say, I need to go and sit in Starbucks because I'm not going to live in fear. No, that's different. But taking the proper precautions and still doing something as a family, going to Disney and having that experience, that is something that if we take the proper precautions, I think at this point today, May 25th, my husband and I will do. One time we were at Disney and we were at the Grand Floridian, I'll never forget this, and we were picking up our luggage, and the cast member was handing us our luggage, and he was telling us about 2 women that were visiting, and he said he'll never forget these women because they had been through a really, really awful year. I think one lost her husband and the other had a really terrible cancer battle, and they just had a really, really hard time. They'd always wanted to go to Disney, and they decided once they could, they were going to go to Disney, just the 2 of them as adults, no children, and they were going to have the best time, and this was going to be their happy time. You know, they were gonna celebrate getting through it, and they were finally going to have some joy in their lives because they had suffered a lot in that last year, and they really wanted to have a good time. And they said that when they left, they had followed up with that cast member and they were just crying joyful tears, and they're like, you guys made this trip so fantastic, and this trip has been so good for us. We needed this. We looked forward to this, and it really helped put things into perspective for them and realize that there are going to be brighter times ahead. So I kind of think of that too, because we don't know what's going to come around the corner. And I would hate to be putting everything off, and then God forbid something happens and then you find out it didn't happen because you didn't want to wear a mask. Does it suck? Yes. Over 300,000 people have died from this. That sucks a lot more. So you have to do what's right for you, but those are my thoughts and opinions and my scientific knowledge on this subject. So if you guys, let me know in the comments below. I'm curious. Would you go if you are required to wear a mask? Now that's the requirement today. It might change tomorrow. You know, this is evolving so quickly that this could change tomorrow. We don't know. But I am curious if you would be willing to wear a mask when you go to Disney. Let me know in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will talk to you next time. Bye, guys.